Today we are going to debate who should decide when it's time for an older adult to move into out of their home. This is a topic that's going to affect nearly everyone as they reach the later stages of their life cycle, which is why this is an important topic to discuss. My name is Nyla Asbury, and I'll be just focusing on the side of the older adult, their freedom and their autonomy.
Hi, thank you, Nyla. My name is Laura, and I will be speaking on behalf of the family and, of course, their collaboration with their medical team because sometimes family uh, can decide that on their own and they need extra support from the medical intervention team to make the decision.
Good. On my side, I believe that we should ask the people that are most affected by this decision what their thoughts and opinions are. According to AARP, 3 out of 4 adults over the age of 50 say that they would prefer to remain at home as they age. If our debate is about who decides, the answer should begin with the person whose life's at stake, for which is the older adult. In the absence of a clear, adjudicated finding of incapacity, the decision to move from a person's home and transition into assisted living or a nursing home belongs to the older adult. That is supported with systems and not replaced by family and healthcare professionals.
Yeah, well, I think the whole topic of deciding whether or not an adult should move out of the house to whether in a nursing home or an assisted home living is very complex. Like there's no one size fits all solution for the issue.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of variables in play that can determine whether or not an older adult can live safely on their own. And older adults can face increasing health and safe risk and becomes essential for those like for family and the medical team, medical professionals to help them make the decisions about living arrangements. And and in some cases it does take legal action because uh, cognitive decline becomes very real. And I think at a certain point of their lifetime, then that cognitivity becomes to decrease, and life decisions are not made very efficiently by the older adult. So, according to the National Institute of Health, approximately 2 out of 3 Americans experience some level of cognitive impairment at an average age of 70 years. So, we are looking at people who might not be able to be in the right mind to make there was the safe decisions for them. And I think that's when the family along with the medical team come hand to hand, and of course with dignity and to the best of their ability, give them the option or at least make them aware of the situation to the best of their ability, that something as far as going into an assisted living home could be a possibility in the future.
Okay. I do think that's fair. I know this is a complicated thing to talk about. In Missouri, I know that guardianship for older adults is governed by Chapter 475 of the Revised Statutes of Missouri. They would like for the least restrictive environment, meaning that they don't want guardians to really be put in place unless it's absolutely necessary. Um, there were some changes made to this law in August of this year, which allows now for older adults to actually start planning for this ahead of time. Arranging kind of their powers of attorney, and signing and storage of these documents for the future in case things may change with their cognitive abilities. And I'm hoping that with this change that will allow older adults to make more choices when it comes to their freedom, and that guardianship should be used kind of as a last resort. I do believe that there are other avenues that can be put in place instead of putting someone in a nursing home.
No, I mean, I could agree with that. I think that before like a decision like that is made, uh, there's definitely needs to be some medical guidance because the family and the medical team are the only ones that are going to be able to tell whether there's some type of cognitive disability, or not disability, but cognitive impairment. And on a journal published by the National Institute of Health, one way the medical team can assess if the older adult has the capacity to care for themselves is by providing a capacity assessment test. It's the CAI model and consists of uh, it is a stepwise process to guide healthcare professionals through a comprehensive capacity assessment. And they focus on 5 domains of safe and independent living that should be evaluated when making these decisions. Some of these domains consist of personal needs and hygiene, including bathing, toileting, dressing, feeding. As we know, with these cognitive impairments like Alzheimer's and dementia, people tend to forget about those essential functions. And, and we see that happening all over the world. The conditions, the second one is the condition of the home environment, including basic repair, maintenance, and the physical structure of the living environment. Older adults who are dealing with this illness of Alzheimer's or dementia, or even just as you get older, you're not able to physically, keep up with the house or keep up with your medication, and then you're going to need at some point some extra support. That might not be okay, let's put you in a home, but let's bring some other resources to the table so they can help you be more and so they can help you with those medication management or emotional support, or just those basic necessities as like toileting, bathing, dressing, feeding, all of that. Activities for independent living, including shopping, cooking, cleaning, and laundry, using the telephone and transportation. It also, another domain is the medical self-care, including, like I told you, medication management, wound care, and appropriate self-illness monitoring. A lot of the people who are suffering from, older adults who are suffering from dementia or any other cancer, diabetes, all the things that come with age, the self-monitor declines as well, and they're not really proactive in taking care of their bodies and their health. And also we have financial affairs, including daily transactions, like, are they able to manage their affairs, their estate, checkbooks, paying the bills? How well are they going to be, to do on their own financially and take care of their finances? And unfortunately, for some older adults who are having a cognitive decline, they're not going to be able to take care of these things. And that's where I think family comes around, uh, and is a support system that can help them pick up the pieces and just keep them safe. Of course, like you said, respecting autonomy and respecting, their value as a person, and also communicating their intentions with the older adult at all times, even if they maybe don't understand. There's still that level of respect that we should have towards them, because I mean they're still their own person. It's just their mind is not, quite there. So, but I found that this assessment very interesting in making those crucial decisions about sending, an older adult to, a home care assisted living house. Like I said, we can't just make those decisions like that. It has to be, it's a process and we gotta keep in mind how they feel, their safety, what the medical team says, all of that before we make any sound decision on housing arrangements.
I 100% agree with you on that. I think that um, this is a very complicated thing, and that it involves multiple systems. Like you said, the family is important when it comes to making these decisions. Medical, physicians and their teams are also very important in making these decisions.
Mhm.
Um, I still think that it's very paramount, though, to take into consideration what the person themselves want. I
Mhm.
understand, with their capacity, if they have healthy capacity, to make decisions. And I understand that's not always the case. Um, for that, I know that you mentioned, safety in the home, and there can be modifications to homes to make
Mhm.
things safer for people who choose to stay home. Um, and this can be anywhere from from like changing light switches to changing the type of knobs on door handles. We can make homes safer for fall risk patients, um, and things like that. Um, I know that, you know, with time, when people move into assisted living places, you know, they become sick more often. There's a chance for them to get infections or even caregiver abuse, um, which are all things that are very disturbing to think about as they get older, and that it is safer and healthier for them to probably, I mean, ultimately safer and healthier with modifications to stay at home.
Mhm.
Um, it is also a good idea to have, you know, Medicaid and Medicare um, services, to have people brought in for healthcare, to provide, um, oh, excuse me, home health aides.
Mhm.
Sorry, I misspoke. To come into the home and help take care of the person. I did this for a brief time in my youth, um, to help. It was a home health aide, and um, I know that I helped cook. I helped do shopping for them. I helped do laundry. I helped clean for them. I helped bathe them. The person I was with, and just the things that they needed help with. And I was with them probably 5 hours a day, but it was based on what their needs were at the time. So I do know and believe that those are things that should be considered too before moving someone into um, permanent place. I know that that person also had a nurse that came in, an RN that would come in and distribute medications and help prep their medications for the week, based on what they, you know, needed.
Mhm.
Um, I think that those things should also be considered when we look at moving somebody along into permanent care.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also when you mention the elderly abuse, I mean, that could also happen within families,
Yes,
because
I agree.
sometimes, the burden of nothing, and I hate to say the burden because they're not, they can be our parents, and it can be very challenging on the other part of this, other side of the house, on the caregiver, whether that's the daughter or the son. It can be financially stressful. I mean, you're raising your own kids, and now you're almost taking care of your parents. So all of that we also have to take into consideration. Is, of course, we want the best interest for the older adult, but also we don't want to neglect the caregivers, emotional, physical, and psychological, um, you know um, environment. We also want to take that into consideration. And when that, unfortunately, you know when older adults are stay with their families, there's sometimes, there's a possibility that's going to be abuse from their own family members. So we also have to take that into consideration, not just the older adult, but also the caregiver that is providing the care for the old, for the mom, and for the elderly, whoever that is. um, uh, yeah, but accommodations, yes, I mean, that is also great. I do agree on that. But we also have to think about, what if they start declining and then they leave the house because they can't remember, and they can't remember how to go back to the house. And that becomes a safety concern, because um, an example is, my grandma, she will just leave the house and she will forget where she was at, and she needed supervision constantly, 24/7. Somebody needed to be with her, so she cannot, God forbid, she will get run over by a car. She just wouldn't know what she was doing. So we also have to take that into consideration, the level of maturity, and then, how advanced they are in, wherever their cognitive, uh, not disability, but it's cognitive deterioration, how far along they are with that. Um, but so far, I mean, we both want this, we both want the best interests for the older adult. And however that looks like, I think it's important that we empower the older adult to make their own decisions at an early age. It's like I think that we as children, or as a future caregiver, should be talking to our parents about this subject. Like, what if this happened? How can we do this? So have all those arrangements in place. So if that happens, then we know how to address that when it happens. But everything is a combined effort between the family and a medical professional and the individual, you know, to bring the best care, possible care for them in the future.
Yeah, and I agree with you that on that, and definitely the capacity specific assessments are something that should be done to kind of make sure that people um, are in their right minds when these decisions are being made. That's why I think early planning is important for figuring out what they want, because everybody accelerates um, health wise in a different way.
Mm,
And I'm sorry to hear about your grandma. I kind of going through something similar with my own mother, um, who recently we made the decision to have her move in with us to take care of her instead of, going into long-term care. At one point, she was in long-term care for when she was recovering from her stroke.
mm,
And it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, seeing the way that facilities were ran. Or at least this one in particular, and it kind of gave me a negative outlook, I think, on facilities. So, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen 10 or 15 years from now. And maybe that would be something that we would have to consider, at that point. But I do know that her wishes is to not be in a nursing home if we can avoid it.
mhm,
So, we're doing everything that we can within our power to make sure that that's happening. So we're starting to get a home health aide that can come in when I'm not home and help her. Things of those natures. I provide most of her appointments, and I know that would be something a family would do. Um, help her getting there. I do know that if her appointments are like in Columbia or places like that, Medicaid also helps her with
mhm,
providing transportation. So that's something that somebody could do from their home if they wished. Um, I do know that this is just not a clear black and white
mhm.
decision, and that even with our plans that we have in place, that those might change too. If she has another stroke or another big event that we don't see coming, it may be out of my scope to take care of her at that point, and we may have to look at um, other resources that we could, have to take care of her. So I do see where you're coming from on this 100%. It doesn't make it easy.
Yeah.
Um, and I get what you're also saying by families carrying that burden. I mean, it is hard. It is hard um, to balance, just my work in school and family life, um, and then raise my daughter, and then also, take care of my mom, who we've kind of switched roles in.
Yeah.
So I 100% see your side of things. Um, but if we could, if your health was, better, I know she would rather be on her own than live with us. But now she's at a point where that transition has to be made.
Mhm,
And we're making all the little things, changes around our house to try to help um, help her stay with us as long as possible before she may transition to permanent, residential. So,
yeah. That's
yeah,
good.
completely understand that.
I'm sorry to hear that, but it's a very complex it's just hard to make a decision like that. Um, and also we got to take into consideration like culture wise, how we
Oh
raise
yeah.
or where we come from, because a lot of cultures, they don't necessarily agree on putting your parents in a home, assisted living. Um, I think it's more like the Western society that that's really has come to that, that has it's more prominent in the Western society than it is in other parts of the world. But I mean, it is not all homes are the same, and I'm sorry that you had, such a bad, experience with that. But it's also important to do some research and to make sure that we are looking for the right home, the right resource to, if it comes to that point, that we definitely want the best place for for our loved one to be at and to be cared for with, with respect and dignity. Um, so, and there's lots of resources out there that can help us find, the right fit for, for whatever needs that she or he might need. So, but thank you, Nyla. I appreciate you, starting this meeting and uh, talking about this very difficult subject because we both have experiences with it. And I think that's what makes this topic a little bit more passionate because we both have loved ones that have been through it or they are going through with that. So thank you for allowing us to talk and have a little debate.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I'm glad that we can kind of see things too on the same level, or see both sides. Um, that that isn't a hard or not an easy thing to decide, and things change too. So, when you have one plan in place for a while, that may eventually change based on what the older adult needs, and their needs change. So that's something to consider as well. Um, but I do strongly believe that keeping a person in place as long as possible is important, for their health, and to prevent the decline in their health, because once they transition into full-time care, um, that isn't good for their mental health once they get there. And I just have real strong feelings against,
Yeah,
um,
there's a
uh,
stigma. Yeah,
yeah, there is a stigma there.
there.
I do believe listening to, the medical, team, and what they have to say, and taking that into account as well. Um, but like you said, doing thorough research on where your loved one goes is important. But I also know that finances also play a role in that too.
Mm,
Um, um, I like that you brought up culturally. Things are different too. That Western cultures, I think we read in our book that, they prefer, um, people prefer nursing homes over. And I almost feel like it's a sense of duty to take care of my mom. I mean, she took care of me
mm,
growing up. I'm sure your grandma played an instrumental role in your life. There's a sense of duty that I'm supposed to be the one that takes care of her. Um, so yeah, that those lines are very blurred, and and this is very messy
mm.
when it comes to deciding, who should be making those decisions.
But yeah, there's a lot of variables, and some families definitely have the financial, support, this financial stability to be able to keep their loved ones in the house, and or they already have a great support system. Like maybe you have sisters, brothers that can help you, you know, take care of your mom. When other families might not have the same, those same resources, those same opportunities. Some
Mhm.
families might not have the financial means to, bring another member of the family and take care of them because they have to work double shift. They have to work, they have to find childcare for their kiddos. Um, or they don't have the support system of their spouse or their sibling rivalry and they fight and they're like, no, you want to take care of mom and I don't want nothing to do with it. So all those variables, I think at that point, it's almost like you're being forced to look at an outside resource to take care of that loved one for you.
Mhm.
So all
Yeah,
depends. Mhm.
yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, but I know that in the state of Missouri, in order, like right now, if my mom was to choose to move out, if I don't really have any say because I'm not her guardianship. We did not go through any court
Mhm.
system to make this certain. So she could leave and move into to somewhere else if she wanted to at this point. I don't think that's going to happen, but she could very well kind of go back to living on her own if she wanted to. But we just figured with current changes in our economy was a factor in this too. We considered um, her inability to drive. Like there were several things. Wasn't so much her health necessarily, but other environmental factors that kind of thought it would be best decision with her also making that decision um, at this point. But I'm also aware that there are programs for people who want to stay at home if they prefer to do it that way. With getting transportation and rides to doctor's appointments, um, and different benefits that they have that they can use to stay at home. I just think that they should be very included in that decision when those decisions are made. Um,
Mhm.
and when we're talking, I feel like we're talking about them kind of in third person, and not really including them into that discussion, if that makes sense. Because it is important for them to be part of that discussion and help make those decisions. As long as their mental capacity is allows them to. Um,
Mhm. Well,
yeah,
yeah. And it's funny you said that because sometimes like MOCA or Medicaid transportation is not very reliable. And I'm only saying because I am a caseworker. So that's what I do. And
okay.
and it depends, all depends on where you are. Like maybe St. Louis, when you have the bigger areas, transportation is more accessible and Medicaid rides are more efficient. But around here where I live, most of my patients, most of my clients, they they missed their appointments because transportation was not there to pick them up. So we also have to think about all those outside factors that can come into play when an older adult is living by himself or by herself. Then and of course that's where programs like like the company that I work for, that's where programs like that come in hand in providing those resources for the older adults, but that not always happens. So reliability from MOCA and Medicaid can be very challenging when providing those services for older adults.
Yeah, I agree that could happen. On the other end of things, keeping people out of residential care or limiting it more so for people who have more life-threatening conditions instead of people who maybe have become an inconvenience, so
Mhm.
to speak. Instead of taking up beds and making sure those beds are available for people who um, really need the beds versus, just someone who may be kind of on that fence whether they need to go kind of thing. I just don't think that, that should be the first route. And I don't think that you think that either. I think um, that, we both understand that, there's kind of a timelines sort
Mhm.
of on how things happen. Um, I really strongly believe in people's autonomy and making decisions. So that's, I guess, kind of where I was coming from on this. So I'm glad that we were able to talk about this. Um,
Thank you. Yeah.
and kind of see both sides of, of this, because it's not an easy thing to discuss, even with your family members or, um, like you said, different people in your family may also feel differently about the care of the elder adult. Um, and I know from personal experience that's something that is probably really common. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you, Nyla. I
thank
appreciate you
you.
coming through and um, having a little chat about deciding where our parents are going to go after, after it's just very complicated, and I really struggle with this topic because I have to think about my mom as well. But
Yeah.
I think it brought us some good insight on both sides. So thank you.
Yes, and thank you so much.
I hope you have a good night.
You too.
Bye.